I guess to understand how I ended up here, I need to start from the beginning. My name's Tiffany, I'm 32 now, but this story goes way back. Growing up in my family wasn't easy. My parents owned a small cafe downtown, nothing fancy, just a place where locals came for coffee and sandwiches. From as early as I can remember, there was always this difference in how they treated me versus my sister Jenny. Jenny's 4 years younger than me, and man, she was the golden child. Always was, always will be, I guess. When she was 6, they got her this expensive bike for her birthday. When my 10th birthday came around, I got a journal and some pens. To help with your homework, Mom said. Jenny got an iPhone when she was 12. I had to save up from babysitting to buy my first flip phone at 15. The worst was how they handled the cafe. By 13, I was expected to help out after school, waiting tables, washing dishes, sweeping floors. No allowance, no pay. Just family duty. Meanwhile, Jenny would skip in, grab a cookie from the display case, and skip right back out. When I was 16 and Jenny was 12, they gave her $20 just for bringing in the mail. I'd spent that whole Saturday working the register. "You're so good with the customers, Tiff," Dad said when I pointed out the unfairness. "Jenny's not ready for that responsibility yet." Jenny was never ready for responsibility, but somehow always ready for rewards. By 17, I'd had enough. I remember that day clearly. It was a hot summer afternoon, and I'd just finished an 8-hour shift at the cafe. Jenny had come in for maybe 30 minutes, then left to go to the mall with her friends. Mom gave her $50 for lunch and shopping. I walked into the back office where Dad was doing the books. "I'm quitting," I said. He laughed. "Quitting what?" "Working here, for free. I applied at Rosie's Cafe across town, and they're hiring. They'll pay me $13 an hour." His face changed so fast, "You can't be serious. This is family business." "Family business should still pay family," I said. Mom came in then, and they both started in on me. How ungrateful I was, how this cafe would be mine someday, how I was betraying them. They didn't speak to me for 2 whole weeks after I started at Rosie's. 2 weeks of silence at home. 2 weeks of Jenny smirking at me across the dinner table. But I had my own money for the first time, and it felt good. Then came the college bomb. I'd been secretly applying to schools, and I got accepted to State University with a full ride to study finance and investment analysis. When I told them over dinner, Dad choked on his meatloaf. "College, for what?" Mom asked, like I'd announced I was joining the circus. "I want to be an investment analyst," I said. Dad laughed. "Investment analyst? You have a perfectly good career waiting for you here." "A career where you don't pay me," I reminded him. "We feed you, clothe you, put a roof over your head," Mom said. "I'm not going to work at the cafe," I said, "not when you pay Jenny but not me." They denied it, of course. Said Jenny only got pocket money, not a salary. But I'd seen the books. Jenny had been on the payroll since she was 14. "We're not paying for college," Dad finally said, "not for some useless degree." I smiled. "Full scholarship. Plus, I've saved enough from Rosie's for an apartment. I'm splitting rent with Kate from my class." The silence that followed was deafening. They didn't speak to me for the entire month before I left for college. Throughout freshman year, no calls. No texts, no invites home for holidays. I spent Thanksgiving with Kate's family. Christmas too. During sophomore year, my Aunt Lisa called me. We'd always been close, she's Mom's sister but nothing like her. "They're still upset you didn't continue the family business," she told me. "Your mom keeps saying you broke your father's heart." Did she mention how they paid Jenny but not me? Or how they got her a car for her 16th birthday while I took the bus until I could buy my own clunker? Aunt Lisa sighed. "I know, honey, it's not fair. I threw myself into college life. Made friends, got good grades, worked part-time at a financial firm's mailroom to get my foot in the door. I checked Jenny's social media sometimes. When she was 17, she posted a selfie with her first paycheck from the cafe, with mom and dad beaming beside her. The caption, "So blessed to be appreciated for my hard work." I blocked her account after that. By senior year, I had job offers from 3 investment firms. I chose Westfield Investments because they specialized in real estate. Looking back now, that decision changed everything. Despite everything, some tiny part of me had hoped they'd show up at my graduation. They didn't. I scanned the audience, searching for familiar faces, but there were none. Kate's parents cheered for me though, and Aunt Lisa came with flowers. "Their loss," she whispered as she hugged me, "I'm so proud of you." That night, as Kate and I celebrated with our friends, I made a promise to myself: I would succeed so spectacularly that one day, they'd regret choosing Jenny over me. My career at Westfield Investments took off faster than I expected. I started in their analyst program, crunching numbers and researching properties. While my college friends complained about entry-level work, I thrived. Real estate investment fascinated me: the way properties gained value, how location affected returns, the art of knowing when to buy and when to sell. Within 2 years, I was managing my own portfolio of investment properties for clients. My boss, Richard, took notice after I found an overlooked apartment building that turned a 22% profit in just 8 months. He gave me more responsibility, bigger clients, higher stakes. I didn't mention that growing up watching my parents run a business, even though they excluded me from it, had taught me to spot opportunities others missed. Their cafe was successful because it was in the perfect location with the right clientele. I'd learned that much, at least. By 27, I'd saved enough from my bonuses and salary to make my first personal investment, a rundown duplex near the university. I renovated it myself on weekends, rented both units to grad students, and made back my investment in 14 months. That success gave me confidence. I started taking bigger risks with my own money, while remaining conservative with clients' investments. I bought a foreclosed commercial property, converted it to apartments, and tripled my money. Then I did it again with a small apartment building on the edge of downtown. Meanwhile, I lived modestly in a 2-bedroom apartment in Hawthorne District. It wasn't fancy or in the trendiest neighborhood, but I loved it. The building was from the 1920s with original hardwood floors, high ceilings, and windows that caught the morning light. My neighbors were artists, teachers, and retirees who'd lived there for decades. We had potlucks in the courtyard on summer evenings. It felt like home in a way my parents' house never had. Aunt Lisa still called occasionally. She'd divorced Uncle Phil and moved to Arizona, where she worked at a resort. She never brought up my parents unless I asked, and I rarely did. At 28, I made the decision that would change everything: I quit Westfield Investments. Richard was stunned. "You're our top performer, name your price to stay." "It's not about money," I told him. "I want to build something of my own." He shook his head but respected my choice. "You'll be back when you realize how hard it is out there." I wasn't back. Within 6 months, I'd established Tiffany Burke Investments. My Westfield clients followed me, providing a solid foundation. I worked from my apartment, converting the 2nd bedroom into an office. My dining table became my conference room. I hired a part-time assistant who worked remotely. My strategy was simple: find undervalued properties, renovate smartly, and either flip them or keep them as rentals. I wasn't looking to become a real estate mogul. I wanted sustainable growth and steady income. Quality over quantity. When I turned 29, I found the perfect investment: a 3-story apartment building in the heart of downtown. It had character, location, and was severely underpriced because the elderly owner needed to sell quickly. I emptied my accounts, took a calculated loan, and bought it. I hired Mario as my property manager, a retired contractor who knew every inch of that building and treated the tenants like family. He handled day-to-day operations while I focused on the investment side of the business. My routine became comfortable. I'd wake up early, make coffee, and work from my home office. Lunch was often at the corner deli where the owner, Sal, knew my order by heart. Evenings were for reviewing property reports, planning renovations, or having dinner with friends. I wasn't wealthy by city standards, but I was financially secure and growing my net worth steadily. My apartment building downtown was nearly fully occupied with reliable tenants, and I was looking for my next investment opportunity. No one in my family knew about my success. As far as they were concerned, I disappeared after college. Sometimes I wondered if they ever talked about me, if they regretted how things had ended. But those thoughts never lasted long. I had built a life without them, and it was a good one. Then, 2 days after my 30th birthday, an unexpected notification popped up on my phone. A direct message from Jenny on Instagram. I hadn't blocked her on this platform, mainly because I rarely used it. "Hey sis," the message read, "I know it's been forever. I'm turning 26 next month and having a birthday dinner at the cafe. I'd really like you to be there. No pressure, just thought it might be nice to see you after all this time." I stared at the message for a long time. Why now, after a decade of silence? Part of me wanted to ignore it, to continue as if I'd never seen it. But another part, maybe the part that still remembered being the big sister, was curious. After 3 days of deliberation, I replied, "Thanks for the invite, what time should I be there?" Jenny sent the details quickly, as if afraid I'd change my mind. Friday evening, 7 p.m. at the family cafe, casual dress. "What do you buy for a sister you haven't seen in 10 years? I settled on a silver bracelet from a local jewelry designer, nice but not extravagant. Personal but not intimate." The night of the party arrived too quickly. I found myself standing outside the cafe, looking through the windows at the gathered crowd. I recognized my parents instantly. Dad had less hair, Mom had more gray, but otherwise, they looked the same. Jenny was at the center of attention, laughing with a group of people I didn't know. Walking into the cafe felt like stepping through a time portal. The layout was the same, though they'd updated the decor. The familiar smell of coffee and pastries brought back memories, not all of them pleasant. The chatter died down as people noticed me. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. She looked older, with streaks of gray in her hair. Dad stood frozen, coffee cup midway to his lips. "Tiffany," Jenny rushed over, throwing her arms around me, "you actually came." I returned the hug awkwardly, offering the wrapped gift, "Happy birthday." Mom approached slowly, tears welling in her eyes. "My baby," she whispered, embracing me tightly. Dad joined the huddle, patting my shoulder as if unsure how else to touch me. Aunt Lisa hadn't exaggerated, they really hadn't expected me to ever return. "Everyone," Jenny announced to the room, "this is my sister Tiffany." I was introduced to cousins I barely remembered, Jenny's friends I'd never met, and a few regular customers who'd known me as a teenager. Everyone asked the same questions: where did I live? What did I do? Was I married? "I'm a freelancer," I said when asked about my work. "I handle financial expeditions for clients." Not entirely untrue, but vague enough. "Where do you live?" Jenny pressed. "On Elm Street," I replied. Jenny's nose wrinkled slightly. "That's not really the best part of town, is it?" "I like it," I shrugged, "good neighbors." When dinner was served, I found myself seated between my mother and a cousin. Dad kept glancing at me from across the table, as if making sure I was still there. The conversation flowed around me, years of inside jokes and shared memories I wasn't part of. As dessert was served, Dad stood up, raising his glass. "To my youngest daughter on her 26th birthday," he began. "Your mother and I couldn't be prouder of the businesswoman you've become. Under your management, this cafe has grown beyond our wildest dreams." Everyone clapped, I joined in politely. "Unlike some," Dad continued, his eyes briefly flickering to me, "Jenny recognized the value of family tradition. She's shown responsibility by taking up the family business." The table fell silent, all eyes turned to me. "To Jenny," I said, raising my glass to break the tension, "Happy birthday." The moment passed, but the message was clear: I was still the family disappointment. Throughout the evening, Jenny made several comments about her cafe. How she'd expanded the menu, renovated the kitchen, increased profits. Mom and Dad beamed with each boast. When someone asked about my college experience, Mom quickly changed the subject. By the time I left, I was exhausted from smiling through subtle digs and maintaining my composure. At home, I collapsed on my couch and laughed until tears streamed down my face, imagining their reactions if they knew the truth about my finances. To my surprise, my parents called the next day. Then again a few days later. They wanted to have dinner, catch up, reconnect. I agreed to occasional visits, more out of curiosity than sentiment. These family dinners became a strange new ritual. Jenny was usually there, holding court with stories of cafe challenges and business decisions. My parents hung on her every word, occasionally turning to me with perfunctory questions about my freelance work. I continued playing the role of moderately successful freelancer. It wasn't about deception, I simply didn't want to share my actual life with people who had shown so little interest in it for a decade. Let them think what they wanted. One Sunday, my phone rang with an unexpected request. "We'd love to see your place," Mom said. "We're curious about where you live." I hesitated but eventually agreed. My apartment wasn't fancy, but it was comfortable and reflected my taste: minimalist furniture, good art, quality over quantity. The following weekend, they arrived, Mom, Dad, and Jenny, scrutinizing everything with poorly concealed judgment. "It's cozy," Mom said, which in family code meant small. Jenny walked around, touching things, peering into rooms. "These buildings are so old," she remarked, running a finger along my bookshelf. "And you're not even in the city center. Don't you want something more modern?" I shrugged. I like having character in a home. "To each their own," she replied with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Dad asked about my neighbors, my commute, whether the area was safe. The visit lasted an uncomfortable hour before they left for dinner reservations elsewhere, an invitation not extended to me. After they left, I sat in my quiet apartment, wondering why I'd allowed them back into my life. They hadn't changed. Jenny was still the golden child, I was still the disappointment. The only difference was that now they wanted to maintain some superficial relationship, perhaps out of social obligation or to ease their conscience. 2 weeks later, I was reviewing tenant documents in my home office when a familiar name caught my eye. Burke, J., new tenant in Unit 3B of my downtown building. Jenny Burke, my sister. I called Mario immediately. "The new tenant in 3B, Jenny Burke, can you tell me about her?" "Nice young lady," Mario replied, "works at a cafe downtown. Said she wanted to be closer to work. Signed a 1-year lease 3 months ago. Is there a problem?" The irony was almost too perfect. My super successful sister who ran the family business was renting an apartment in a building I owned. She'd probably chosen it because of the prestigious downtown address, unaware that her estranged sister was her landlord. I laughed so hard Mario asked if I was okay. Life continued with this new secret knowledge. I attended another family dinner where Jenny complained about her rent increasing. "But the location is worth it," she added proudly. "I'm in the Riverside building now." I nodded sympathetically, biting my tongue. Then came the invitation that would change everything. Mom called, asking me to come to a special family gathering. "We're celebrating Jenny's 10-year anniversary at the cafe," she explained. "It would mean a lot if you were there." I agreed, more out of curiosity than anything else. When I arrived at my parents' house, it was filled with familiar faces, relatives, cafe regulars, Jenny's friends. A banner hung across the living room, celebrating 10 years of success. The celebration was in full swing when I arrived. Mom had outdone herself with the food, and Dad was pouring champagne for everyone. Jenny sat at the head of the table like royalty, accepting congratulations with practiced modesty. I took a seat near the end of the table, nodding politely to relatives who seemed surprised to see me there. Aunt Lisa, who had flown in for the occasion, squeezed my hand under the table in quiet support. Mom clinked her glass to get everyone's attention. "We're so blessed to celebrate Jenny's decade of dedication to our family business," she announced. "When we opened the cafe 25 years ago, we always hoped our children would carry on our legacy. Jenny has exceeded every expectation." The toasts continued, each one more effusive than the last. Dad spoke about Jenny's business acumen, how she'd increased profits by 30%, how she'd modernized operations while keeping the cafe's charm. We're especially proud, he added, glancing my way, that Jenny understood the value of family tradition. I smiled tightly, sipping my wine. As dinner progressed, Jenny grew more animated with each glass of champagne. Her cheeks flushed pink as she regaled everyone with stories of her business triumphs. The guests laughed at her jokes and nodded at her wisdom. My parents beamed with pride. Then Jenny turned her attention to me. "So, Tiff," she said, her voice carrying across the table, "still doing that freelance thing in your little apartment?" The table quieted, all eyes shifted between us. "Still at it," I confirmed pleasantly. "You know," Jenny continued, swirling her champagne, "I just leased a gorgeous apartment downtown. In the Riverside building, top floor, city views." She gestured grandly, the most prestigious address in town. My mother nodded. "Jenny deserves it, she works so hard." "Meanwhile," Jenny said, her tone sharpening, "my college-educated sister lives in that old building on Elm Street and works from home doing, what was it again? Financial expeditions?" I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. Jenny laughed, too loud. "Let's compare notes, shall we? I run a successful business. I live in the city's best building. I'm respected in the community." She ticked these points off on her fingers. And Tiffany went to college on scholarship because she was too proud to join the family business, works some vague job from home, and lives in a mediocre apartment in a mediocre neighborhood. Jenny leaned forward, eyes locked on mine. "Just admit it, Tiff. You made the wrong choice. You're a disappointment, a failure, a loser." The room fell silent, all eyes were on me, waiting for my reaction. For a moment, I considered simply walking out. These people had never respected me. Their opinions shouldn't matter. But 10 years of dismissal and judgment bubbled up inside me. I reached into my bag and pulled out a manila folder I'd brought for work. It contained property documents I needed to review, including ownership papers for the Riverside building. I placed the folder on the table and slid it toward Jenny. "Take a look," I said quietly. Confusion crossed her face as she opened it. Her eyes widened as she scanned the contents. "What is this?" she stammered. "Property records for the Riverside building," I replied, "where you rent your prestigious apartment." My father frowned. "What does that have to do with anything?" I turned to him. "The owner's name is on the front page." Jenny's face had gone pale. My mother grabbed the folder, squinting at the document, then looking up at me in disbelief. "This says the owner is Tiffany Burke Investments," she whispered. The table erupted in murmurs. My father snatched the papers, examining them as if searching for a forgery. "That's impossible," he said, "you're a freelancer." I smiled. "I manage financial investments from my home office. Real estate, primarily. The Riverside building is one of my properties." I turned to Jenny. "You've been paying rent to me for the past 3 months." The silence that followed was absolute. Jenny's mouth opened and closed wordlessly. "So," I continued, gathering my purse, "to answer your question about who made the wrong choice. I'll let the evidence speak for itself." I stood, nodding to the stunned faces around the table. No one spoke as I walked to the door. The last thing I heard was the sound of Jenny's champagne glass hitting the floor. A week passed, my phone lit up with messages from family members, some apologetic, some curious, some seemingly impressed by my success. I ignored them all. Then came the call from my mother. Her voice was hesitant, almost meek. "We'd like to talk, Tiffany, your father, Jenny, and I. Could you come over tomorrow?" Against my better judgment, I agreed. They were waiting when I arrived, seated at the kitchen table like a tribunal. Jenny wouldn't meet my eyes. My father cleared his throat several times before speaking. "The cafe is struggling," he finally admitted. "We've had some financial setbacks. The location isn't drawing customers like it used to, and competition has increased." My mother reached across the table, her hand stopping short of touching mine. "We thought," Given your experience with investments, you might be willing to help. A loan, or perhaps you could invest in the business. I looked at them in disbelief. After everything, this was why they wanted to see me? We're family, my father added weakly. Jenny finally spoke up, and maybe I could stay in my apartment without paying for a while? Just until things improve at the cafe? I mean, you own the building, so it's not like you'd be losing money. I laughed. I couldn't help it, the audacity was breathtaking. Let me get this straight, I said, for 10 years, you didn't speak to me. When we reconnected, you mocked my career and living situation. And now that you know I'm successful, you want my money? We're not asking for a handout, my father said stiffly. It would be a business arrangement. I stood up. I don't invest in risky ventures. And from what I can see, the cafe qualifies. As for the apartment, I looked at Jenny. Rent is due on the 1st, same as always. You're being selfish, Jenny snapped, after everything we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me? I asked softly. The question hung in the air, unanswerable. I think we're done here, I said, walking to the door. Please don't contact me again. They tried, of course, calls, texts, messages through relatives. I blocked them all. A month later, Mario informed me that Jenny had moved out of the Riverside building, declining to renew her lease. I felt nothing at the news. No satisfaction, no regret, no anger. Just a quiet certainty that I'd made the right choice, 10 years ago and today. Sometimes people ask if I miss having a family. The truth is, I don't miss the family I was born into. But I built something better, relationships based on mutual respect and genuine care. My neighbors, colleagues, friends, they've become my real family. As for reconciliation with my parents and Jenny, I honestly don't know. Maybe someday, if they can see me as I am rather than who they wanted me to be. But I'm not holding my breath. And more importantly, I'm not waiting. My life goes on, with or without them.